Let me also go across to Adrian Calomel, fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute, terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar and author of the forthcoming book on Hezbollah, joining us live on the broadcast at the moment. Good evening. Welcome to WION. I want to start by asking you what has been happening in the last few hours. There's a lot of to and fro. One statement comes from Donald Trump. The other one comes in from Iranian media. One says there are negotiations happening. The other one says there are no negotiations happening, and it's just a strategy that America is now deploying. Who do you think is speaking the truth?
Well, good evening to you. That's a very interesting question. Just based on there is a possibility that Trump is speaking to some rump government or inside the Islamic Republic, but history would dictate that he's not speaking to anybody. It would be the first time there's been actually one-way talks without a mediator involved. I've got questions about who he'd actually be speaking to, because by all estimation, it looks like the IRGC is in control. So that means he would be speaking to someone beyond the control of Ahmad Vahidi, who's the head of the IRGC, as well as Mohammed Ghalibaf, two hardliners. Now, could he possibly speaking to some moderates outside IRGC? Pezeshkian was always viewed as a moderate. People were absolutely shocked when he became president. But my warning to everybody is that moderates are just the other side of the same coin as the hardliners. It's just a different way they package it up. So to answer the question, I don't think there are actually negotiations taking place. I think this is strategy on the part of Donald Trump. I didn't think there was he was seriously going to hit their entire electrical grid infrastructure. That was not going to be the plan. I think there's always been a day after plan, looking at what he's done with the targets and what he's limited from the targets as far as gas, which is the National Army, not the IRGC, which they have targeted. So I think, and you also you brought up the Strait of Hormuz. I think, Trump saw this situation in the world where the maximum risk expectations in the Strait of Hormuz, and just with his announcement in the last couple of hours, we've seen the markets dip back down. So this could be a strategic move, one to deal with the energy security problems that are going on, and also to get assets in place to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz can be open. Japanese have already said that they're going to commit, and we'll see if it happens, minesweepers. So I think it's more strategy.
So it's interesting that you say that, Adrian, because a lot of critics of U.S. and Donald Trump say that, look, this is just another moment when Trump is withdrawing or chickening out of a conflict, a moment where he himself has put himself into. But also just, whether or not these negotiations are happening, the fact of the matter is that the IRGC is still in control. So how does that change the regime, which was your goal to start off with this war, this entire war?
Yeah, great question. With the IRGC in control and the individuals that have been taken out, there's a few other individuals. Now, we look at Ali Laranjani. He was a key figure. He's rose up for 40 years within the government, was head of the power structure, ran the country through fear, intimidation, and that fear and intimidation trickled down through the ranks. It's very, very difficult to replace an individual like that. So they've replaced them with Ahmad Vahidi and Ghalibaf, as I mentioned. Now, once they get removed, then they don't have a very, we would call it, deep bench as far as people to replace. And there's the other part of the IRGC, the people that are towards the bottom. There's serious discontent within the ranks, but there's fear holding it together at the very top. So,
Adrian, there's also, how Israel moves forward. Nobody's talking about what Israel wants right now, and, how it moves forward, whether Donald Trump will be able to convince Netanyahu not to have these, military strikes for a period of 5 days.
Well, exactly. Well, Trump said he's going to put a moratorium on hitting the power grids. That doesn't mean that he's going to put a moratorium on hitting other targets. And you're exactly right. With Israel, they're going to have their own objectives, and we've seen them. I don't think Trump was on board with them hitting the South Pars, a gas field that they share, the Islamic Republic shares with Qatar. But Israel may act in its interests. But this has been a relatively well-coordinated campaign, and I hate to say good cop, bad cop type thing, but we are partners with Israel in this, and you really have to look at more. I look more at joint messaging than one-offs. When I see one-off here, one-off there, I see it more as a psychological game.
Well, joint messaging is something that is perhaps a miss since this war began, at least between Trump and Netanyahu. But let's wait and see how this moves forward. Adrian Calomel, thanks very much for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.
Thank you so much.